Mikasa Sukasa. You Eddie, right?
Yeah.
Look like Eddie Guerrero, man. You like to watch wrestling?
Yep.
Have you ever watched wrestling? On weed? That's the way to see it, man! It's rock!
What up, world? It's your boy Physics, and you know what time it is. It is March 18th, 2022. Welcome to another WoW news joint. On today's episode, we're talking about Bret Hart possibly being in AEW, as well as talking about what happened between AEW and Joey Janela and more right after this.
Really?
This is my yard now.
Hey, yo, survey time. Thank you for being here. So let's get to the show. And if you are watching this on the replay, make sure to hit that comment section, whatever you write there. I will be talking back to you there. So see you there. But till then, let's get to the first segment of today, and that is Bret Hart possibly going to AEW. Wrestling Observer Radio's Dave Meltzer says, I'm sure AEW wants Bret Hart, given the recent teases that Bret might join AEW to manage FTR, as well as the upcoming Owen Hart Cup tournaments. Meltzer noted that Hart won't come in as a heel. Well, I think this is smart business. I know that it will be very interesting to see what happens on WWE's end about how they would treat Bret, because Bret is not Snoop. They already have a tumultuous relationship between WWE / WWF and Bret Hart over the past, especially with Shawn Michaels. It also doesn't help that Dash, basically FTR altogether, stated how much they disliked Shawn Michaels while they were at NXT and in WWE. So I'm not sure if that, from what it looks like now, I'm not sure if that was a work or they were actually shooting at that moment. But if it was them shooting, hey, it'd be a good grab to have Bret Hart come in as their manager. Now, as Dave Meltzer stated, that he wouldn't come in as a heel, so it feels like it'd probably be, Bret trying to talk them into going back to the roots, just strictly wrestling, all fists, no flips, and basically say, do what me and Jim Neidhart did. That's what you need to model yourself after, and you will be champions. And we'll see them have the belts around a race one more time and most likely lose it to the Hardy Boys. Because at this moment, the whole thing seems to be, once the Hardy Boys came into effect for AEW, is to build that tag team division. And it looks like they're about to do it. And with Bret Hart being involved, that's more odds for the tag team division. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is what's next. Now let's talk about what happened between AEW and Joey Janela. Now, when All Elite Wrestling was launched in 2019, Joey Janela was a name that intrigued a lot of people. Janela had forged his own brand on the independent scene with things like his spring break shows and seemed like a good fit with the DIY approach, which also gave us Being the Elite in All In. And if you remember, he was at All In. He was initially featured prominently too. Janela feuded with John Moxley in AEW's first year, en route to Mox winning the company's world title. But over the last couple of years, the Jersey natives spent most of his time on Dark. Lately, he's had more matches on the Indies than in AEW. So what happened? In a new interview with Denise Salcido, the bad boy had an answer, and it was Janela believed that his super kick that sidelined Eddie Kingston would have broken over the bone recently is why he was in hot water. He stated, but I think they had plans for me. Tony kept on saying, after this, we're bringing you back to TV. But unfortunately, I think a lot of it has to do with the situation where I worked with Eddie Kingston in Charlotte. And I super kicked him in the face a little bit too hard, came in a little bit too hot. I'd been squatting probably 50 more pounds than I'm used to be squatting, and doing 100 pounds more on the leg press. And I don't know, I didn't realize I had that type of power in my legs. And I gave him a super kick and I broke his orbital bone. He was going into a feud with Chris Jericho, and I feel that may have been a straw that broke the camel's back. A lot of guys, maybe some older heads, that believe my hype and believe that I was some kind of dangerous professional wrestler. I've had times where I've injured people, of course. Everyone has. But once you get that reputation, it's hard to break that. I've had a string of bad luck throughout my AEW career, and that may have been a straw that broke the camel's back, but I don't know, because they won't communicate with me. They did the same thing to Marco Stunt. They just stopped talking to him. But I appreciate them. If you have talent relations, I know Christopher Danes will love nothing more than to tell me I am no longer with the company, but it is what it is. I am not sad. I am not mad. I'm not mad at anyone. Had a wonderful experience. He also followed that up with letting us know what his contract status was, and it is my contract's up on May 1st, and I'm going to have to say no now. I'm not interested in signing with AEW, re-signing with them. Janela said he was hesitant to return to the Indies and wasn't sure how many promoters were interested in meeting his new higher booking fees, but it looks like his fears were unfounded, and he says he has companies pinching him matches and telling him we want that Joey Janela back. In addition to Janela's story and his mentions of Marco Stunt, Chavo Guerrero recently told Wrestling Inc.'s Nick Hausman his relationship with AEW ended with the company essentially ghosting him. It's only one side of the story, but along with TK's handling of Big Swole's criticism after she left the company, it paints an interesting picture. Now, I've said this in the past when it came to Joey Janela. When you look at what they were doing in the beginning with getting all of the Joshi wrestlers, getting all of these big independent names from Joey Janela to Brian Cage, Jurassic Express, they were very tapped in and bringing as much indie eyes as they could to AEW. As you see with the Joshi wrestlers, they just kind of pushed them to the side. And now they really have no place in the main event or even the TBS stuff with Jay Cargill. Now they've used all of their clout of somebody like Joey Janela, and now they have no more use for him because now they have the clout of Bryan Danielson. They have the clout of CM Punk, William Regal. Basically, people that used to be in WWE that were huge in WWE that are now here. They don't really need the indie wrestler anymore. They're good to go. And I feel like on top of how they go about telling people they're not fired. Now I know everybody gets on John Laurinaitis calling people and telling them that it's budget restraints. I know they get on him about that. Understandable. But at least he calls. Like to just reach out to him, you don't hear anything. And I'm pretty sure if he was to, and why would you show up to a place where they're not answering any of your questions about, do I have anything going on? Because at the end of the day, you're still an independent contractor and you're technically an independent contractor with AEW. So if you're not saying anything to me, I'm about to book as much shows as I can, make this paper rather than showing up, being a catering, not getting paid, and not doing anything at all. Because from what it seems like when it comes to AEW, if they don't use you, you're not getting paid. It's not WWE where you're in catering, but you got a contract, so you're good because you can't wrestle anywhere else. So, a lot of people don't mind being backstage, taking care of their family. It's like, well, at least wear and tear on my body. I'd rather be out there, shutting the show down. But hey, I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Don't hurt me at all, literally. But if they are ghosting people, which is Big Swole, Chavo, Joey, and now it seems most likely they're ghosting Marco Stunt as well. Like if they ghosted all of these people, then this is how they do business. Once they're done with you, there's no relationship anymore. They're done. They're not gonna talk to you. You can reach out as much as you want to, but you're not gonna hit a word. Your contract's just gonna expire, and then they're gonna move on. I would say Tony Khan and company that's very shitty. And wouldn't be surprised if stuff like that comes back to bite them in the future, because it's just not how you run a company and how you let wrestlers know they're no longer needed. At least, WWE tells them, and they have 90 days to get their stuff together. Here, you don't even know if you're fired or not. Brian Cage didn't even know he was fired or not. Brian Cage and everybody in AEW in the backstage thought he wasn't going to be there anymore. So when he signed that contract, everybody was surprised because they were like, well, they weren't talking to him. So we didn't hear any rumblings back here that he was going to stay here or that he had anything going on. So why did we think he was going to be here? So I feel like AEW needs to work on that before it comes to bite them in the ass sometime in the near future. Now let's talk about who showed up at the Performance Center and could be the future of NXT. WWE's vision for the future involves moving away from indie wrestlers and instead teaching college athletes with the right look how to be professional sports entertainment stars. But the future hasn't arrived just yet because WWE's new class of Performance Center recruits still include some independent wrestlers. So who do we have? Now let's start off. We have Teresa Schussler, who debuted on NXT 2.0 as Fallon Henley, as a 24-year-old Tampa, Florida native with 5 years of experience under her belt, competing in the independent circuit under the name of Tesha Price. Next up, we have Kayla Inlay, who has already begun to make a name for herself on NXT 2.0 and NXT Level Up against Saray and Nikita Lyons. A former collegiate dancer and cheerleader, Inlay was trained by former WWE superstar Tyler Breeze after training at his school, Flatbacks. Mitchell LaValle has made a name for himself on the independent circle under the moniker Mother Lover Jake Tucker. Trained by the likes of WWE Hall of Famer Kane, Natalia, Tyson Kidd, and Dr. Tom Pritchard, Mitchell won the 2014 WWE Show Us Your Superstar contest when he was 19, making a series of videos at the WWE Performance Center before appearing on the Summer Slam pre-show panel. This kind of gives me Miz feelings because that's kind of how Miz got his start with everything in WWE. And he's now been there for I think 18 years, which is crazy to think about when it comes to the Miz. Next up, we have Bianca Carelli, the daughter of WWE superstar Santino Marella. Comes to the Performance Center after earning her bachelor's degree in biology from Western University. Corella has extensive training in MMA fighting with focus on judo, jiu-jitsu, and boxing, and she's done a little indie wrestling herself. So will she be as entertaining as her dad? Who knows? But we will see. And last but not least, we have Carla Gonzalez from Pasadena, Texas, is better known as Roxy after graduating from Booker T's Reality of Wrestling School as the youngest ROW Diamond Champion. Now, I got a lot of friends from Texas that have seen Roxy do her thing on the independent scene. And from what I've heard, she's great. She's a star in the making. Seems like Booker T has a good eye for talent. Just seems a lot of people to be coming from uh his program straight into NXT. So I'm looking forward to see what she does because I've heard nothing but good things about her. Now let's get to some quick hits. It's not clear if Jonathan Gresham will work for one or both of Tony Khan's companies, but Fightful Select reports Gresham is currently in talks with Ring of Honor and AEW and said there have been assets produced which indicate he'll be working for Khan in some fashion. I think he'll be doing somewhat of both. He'll have the Ring of Honor belt on him. He is the champion at the moment. He'll probably be using the independent scene to build what Ring of Honor is. He'll be the reason for people to watch Ring of Honor, and I wouldn't be surprised if they shot Jay Lethal right back to Ring of Honor. It just seems that's going to be the case, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Jonathan Gresham versus Keith Lee for the first big Ring of Honor thing. And then Tony Khan can use that as like we have two black wrestlers going at it. So it's not AEW, but look how progressive we are. Anyways, Brian Cage told the Going Broadway podcast he's pitched ideas for his return to AEW, and there is a plan. I guess that's about as much I can throw around out there. We'll wait and see, is what Brian Cage was saying. Like I said, they weren't talking to him. Now he's back. He's thrown some things out there. I guess they gave him some confirmation, but we will see. But I wouldn't be surprised if they basically kept him from WWE because we know Brian Cage is a Vince type of guy. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just kept him away to make sure that Vince doesn't capitalize on him and make him bigger while they're still working, to be, the premier wrestling company. it just wouldn't be a good look that Vince could do something with him, but they couldn't, especially when that's kind of their thing they've been doing on their end. So we'll see. Source told Russell Votes that there will be a WWE pay-per-view event in United Kingdom on Saturday, September 3rd at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Wales. AEW's All Out pay-per-view will take place that same weekend. Madman's Andrew Zarian has been told by WWE writers that the job beats the creativity out of you. Some of them have lost total confidence in themselves as a writer, despite previous experience working on top-tier television shows. Now, I know a lot of people, especially Laylo and Travis, make fun about me working for WWE, but it just seems like hell there. It seems like, and seems like hell, and it also seems they want you to put your full time into them when they don't allow you to be as creative as you want to be. There was a story of Patrice O'Neal, the late great Patrice O'Neal, rest in peace to one of the greatest comedians of all time, where he used to work for WWE, and they would get mad at him for taking comedy shows when they weren't using any of the stuff he was writing. So as soon as they started getting mad at him, he was like, all right, peace, I'm out. And they could do nothing but respect that. But if you're not using my stuff, and you know I've worked for top programs, I work for great television shows, and you're not using anything I'm writing, then just let me do something else. Rather than I have to stay here and I'm getting beaten down because, what I'm doing is not exactly what you want, but what I'm possibly writing could be what can get somebody over. So, just another day of WWE being WWE. Another thing about WWE being WWE, based on an exchange Zarian had with someone at USA Network about low NXT ratings, it sounds like the network is fine with NXT bringing in 620 to 650,000 viewers each week. Which, if that was the case, maybe should have told Vince that so they wouldn't have changed NXT so much. It's fine in its legs now, but let's all be real. There was nothing wrong with NXT. The thing that was wrong with NXT was believing that NXT competition was AEW. It's not. They were never a competition. AEW's competition is Raw and SmackDown for WWE. And that's how it should have been. And that's how it should have always been. If they would have believed that, there would have been no Wednesday Night War. And if they would have believed that, maybe Triple H would still be working. But they believed the hype that NXT was on the level of AEW, and they were completely wrong. Off the gate, they weren't on the level of AEW. So it is what it is. Billy Gunn mentioned to Wrestling Inc.'s Nick Hausman that with Tony Khan's permission, he recently filmed content for a future A&E documentary on Generation X. Now, we know in the past the really good A&E documentaries that they did with Booker T, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Looks like we have a revelation that DX is next. So super looking forward to it. Now, let's talk about what's going on tonight in the world of wrestling. The road to WrestleMania continues. WrestleMania 38 tonight as WWE SmackDown on Fox airs live from the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. WWE has announced just one segment or match for tonight's show, and that's a collision with WWE Champion Brock Lesnar and WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns. It's likely that King Xavier Woods will make his return to SmackDown tonight. He made his return at a live event last week, and unfortunately, we know last week what happened to Big E with Rich Holland breaking his neck. So I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps in and we start building everything between Sheamus, No Rich Holland, Butch, better known as Pete Dunne, versus Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania 38. WWE Events website has Ronda Rousey advertised for tonight's show. There should be a follow-up on last week's show, Closing Brawl with SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. Now, let's move on to Rampage. Tonight's episode of Rampage was recorded this past Wednesday following Dynamite in the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas. There will be a special start time of 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central due to the NCAA tournament because, baby, it is March Madness. Shout out to St. Peter. Tonight we have Darby Allin versus Butcher, Real Velvet versus Legit, Layla Hirsch, a trios match, House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, Buddy Matthews versus Bear Country, Bear Boulder, and Bronson and Fuego del Sol. And we also have a main event of Keith Lee versus Max Caster of the Acclaim. Make sure to tune in tomorrow to see what Laylo thinks about what happened on SmackDown as well as Rampage, as he gives you those blunt ratings. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you were here with me, and I thank you for that. Enjoy your weekend. I will not be here next week. I will be celebrating my birthday out the country. I will see you in a week and a half. Enjoy yourself. Be safe. Until then, peace.
Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to know when we go live next. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Wrestling on We, and thanks for watching.